Welcome to Born to Win. I'm Bob Proctor, and each Monday I'll be sharing a short message to help you start your week with focus, clarity, and intention. Every episode is designed to remind you that success isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. You were born to win, and when you live in harmony with the laws of life, you begin to experience that truth in every area. Over the last several weeks, we've been laying a foundation for entering this year with intention. We talked about habits, we explored imagination and gave shape to desire. We set goals and discussed making committed decisions. And last week we learned how to interrupt the thought loops that keep us stuck. Today we're going to talk about what often shows up the moment you decide to grow, and that is fear, doubt, and worry. And what I hope you will understand by the end of this podcast is that these things, well, they're not stop signs. In fact, they are signals that something new is trying to be born. Whenever you move beyond what is familiar, you will encounter what my father, Bob Proctor, called the terror barrier. It is not a barrier designed to stop you. It is an invisible line that divides your comfort zone from your learning zone. It is a threshold to test who you are becoming. So take a deep breath, open your mind, and let's get started. There are many things in life that we don't yet know how to do. But the moment you make a committed decision, this I will do, you take a giant step toward meaningful change. And the instant you begin to act on that decision, you will be required to move beyond what is familiar. That is the exact point where you come face to face with an invisible line that we call the terror barrier. Think about some of the big decisions you've already made in your life. Maybe it was a decision to improve your health in a way that you never had before, or maybe it was a career change. Maybe it was getting married. Whenever you commit to building something new and different, something almost always happens inside you. A quiet voice asks, "What do you think you're doing?" Another one says, "What if this doesn't work?" Another reminds you, "You've never done this before." And another warns, "You could fail and people will judge you." That is what it looks like to hit your terror barrier. And it is the moment you are tested. Will you retreat or keep moving forward? Can you look back and remember those moments in your life? How did you manage those thoughts? Well, I've spoken with thousands of people over the 30 years that I worked alongside my father, and a common theme I saw was this. Most people know deep down that they have navigated hard things before. Sometimes they failed, sometimes they succeeded. But by the time I met them, they were often trying to reconnect with that earlier version of themselves, the one who took risks, who believed in themselves, who was willing to step forward, the one who hadn't yet been worn down by experience or by years of self-criticism. And to help people find that part of themselves again, we have to understand what the terror barrier is and what it's not. It is not a weakness to question yourself when those thoughts appear. In fact, it's an opportunity to recommit, an opportunity to acknowledge that what you truly desire is worth reaching for. Questioning yourself, it's not evidence that you are on the wrong path. It is a test of how much you really want what you say you want. Because here's the truth. If you talk yourself out of it, if you turn back in that moment, you return to what feels safe, what my father called bondage, and what most people simply call their comfort zone. You go back to what is familiar. And that familiar place, it may not be terrible, but it can be unhealthy. And it is never a place of growth. Yet people stay there because they cannot clearly measure what they will gain by giving it up. So they choose what my father called a comfort zone, simply because it is known. And that to me is one of the greatest tragedies of human potential. Anyone is capable of growth. It begins with a decision to no longer live as you have been living, and to allow belief in yourself to expand with each small action toward a new normal. No, it's not easy, but it is necessary to cross that emotional and psychological boundary between the known and the unknown if you are seeking something more. The easy choice is to stay on the side where everything is familiar, your routines, your identity, your current results, your comfort zone. But on the other side of that barrier is the person you are becoming. Growth always requires leaving something behind. You replace routines of a lower nature with habits of a higher nature. And to do that, You must be willing to bet on yourself. Because the mind is designed to protect what is known. So when you step toward a bigger vision, the subconscious, man, it'll push back. It produces fear, it produces doubt, it produces worry, not to harm you, but to keep you the same. Not because you are in danger, but because you are changing. So don't misinterpret this experience. Fear does not mean stop. Doubt does not mean you are not capable. And worry, it's not intuition. When these feelings arise, meet them with the understanding that you will figure it out along the way. Growth has never required that you see the entire path in advance. It only asks that you take the next step. If you retreat and shrink back, you are making a decision to stay exactly where you are. And over time, that decision leaves people wondering why life feels so flat, so predictable and uninspired. Fear, doubt, and worry, they're not your enemy. The terror barrier is not something to be avoided. In fact, it is something to get excited about when you understand it. My father used to say he loved the feeling of hitting that wall because he knew it meant he was on to something big. Every level of growth and every meaningful goal sit on the other side of that wall. Learning how to move through these walls is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming courageous. Moving with courage, it's not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move with it. Let fear become information rather than authority. Because what that information is really telling you is this: you are standing on the edge of a new identity. If you are not uncomfortable sometimes, you are not growing. The terror barrier always appears when you attempt to leave what is known. It is the final defense of your old self-image. And that self-image, it'll fight to remain the same even when you consciously desire more. Everything in your life is regulated by how you see yourself. So when you begin to imagine a higher version of you, that old image, it pushes back. It has one job, and that job is to keep things the same. Fear is the language of that old identity. And if you don't understand this, you will spend your life obeying it. You will hear yourself say things like, I would try, but, or I would start, but, I would change, but. Those buts, man, they're the terror barrier in disguise. You don't want to reach the end of your life thinking, I could have, or I should have, or I would have. Create a mantra for yourself, something like, this discomfort is not here to stop me, it's here to shape me. That is leadership of yourself. It's not control over circumstances. It is command over self. It is the ability to say, I am willing to feel uncertain in service of becoming more. The terror barrier protects the current version of you from transformation, and crossing it requires you to embrace a new relationship with discomfort. Every person you admire has crossed this barrier, not once, but repeatedly. Each new level of life presents a new threshold. The work is not to eliminate fear. It is to keep moving through it. The terror barrier is the gateway between the life you have and the life you want. And the only way through it is forward with intentional action. Fear will weaken under specific intention. To begin that process, name your fear. Ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of? Is it rejection? Failure? Maybe it's looking foolish or disappointing someone. Once named, fear becomes less intangible. It becomes something you can stand next to, not something that stands over you, and you stop being chased by it. The ability to be accountable to your truth and say, I see you, and I am still moving. This is how your inner leader is built, not through comfort, through conscious courage. Taking action with courage does not require certainty. It requires a command of self. You do not have to take a giant leap. You only have to take the next aligned step. Too many people get stopped by the start. Choose one small action each day and watch it grow. Send the email, make the call, have the conversation. Show up, begin. Every small act with intention and courage weakens the terror barrier. Not because your fear disappeared, but because your identity has begun to shift. So here's your Born to Win practice for this week. When you feel yourself bumping up against that terror barrier wall, resist the urge to retreat to what is familiar. Do these steps instead. What have you got to lose? Number 1, name it. This is the terror barrier. It is normal to feel this way. It means I am stretching. So what am I afraid of? Name that fear. Next, reframe it. What if it did work out? Your imagination is a powerful, higher mental faculty that you possess. Are you using it against yourself to imagine the worst? Well, flip to the other side of that seesaw and imagine the best. It won't hurt. And finally, act. Take one small step in the direction of your goal, and the next day, take another small step. Not a dramatic leap, an intentional move. And then notice what happens inside you. Not outside, but inside. Notice the shift and the strength that appears and the quiet confidence. That is not motivation. That is the seed of transformation. You were meant to live fully. And the life you want, it's not behind fear, but it is beyond your current comfort zone. So get excited about that and begin living as the person you were born to be. Thank you for joining me today on Born to Win. If this message resonated with you, please share it with someone who could use a reminder of their own inner greatness. It also helps me to reach more people if you rate and follow this podcast. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Brian Proctor Official. And remember, success isn't about luck or timing. It's about alignment. You were designed for success, built for expansion, and born to win. I'll see you next Monday. Until then, think big, trust yourself, and keep growing. And get excited about your future.